Hello and welcome to My Imperfect Knitting Life. This is episode 17. My name is Denny. I live in the North Island of New Zealand on a 1-acre block with my husband, 2 sheep, my little dog Red. I have on my property a mini commercial spinning mill, so I'm going to talk a little bit about my knitting and my mill and just keep you up to date with things, because it's only a week since I did my last podcast. Like whoop whoop, I've actually managed to get another one done in less than a month, and I just want to give you a little update of what's happening. So let me start. Before I start though, if you could give me a thumbs up if you enjoy this video, or subscribe. It definitely makes a difference to how many people get to see it, but if you don't, that's fine too. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about my knitting first. I do not have any finished objects. I showed you the Utivist last week, and I actually realized when I saw it that I'm not going to finish it for myself. I will finish it, but I'm not going to do it for me, and I actually have a friend in mind that I want to give it to, so I need to get it done now because I would like to give it to her. And when that's done, hopefully she will do a little bit of modeling for me and I can show you. So no finished objects. What I have done was, I have a favorite, one of my favorite podcasts that I watch is the Knitty Stew in Canada. And she is collaborating with somebody else, and they're doing a knit along for the Halibut. Now, my friend Judy also has done the Halibut, and I decided that I did want to do it, so I got the pattern. And last week I spun up some sliver that I dyed. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a skein to show you, but these are the colours. This is some of the roving, but I felt it was a little bit too... was a bit felted, so I'm going to use that one day, being creative with felting. But these are the colours. The one end is saffron and the other end is a colour blue called Night, and it was dyed on Anna Gratton's sliver, and it's not a white base, it was a coloured base, so it gives a, you know, that beautiful rich colouring. And this is a cake of it, that's why I can't show you the actual skein. Yep, this is one of the cakes. There's quite a lot of saffron on the outside here, and here's another one, a bit more blue rather than the lots of the yellow. And yes, so I've started my Halibut. So if you haven't done the Halibut, I'm going to get the pattern up and show you. It's by Caitlin Hunter, and here it is. So it's a top-down sweater, and it's got some colour work, so that this particular one's done in a dark background, and then the Halibut is done in a light coloured yarn. So I have got that yarn that I just showed you, and I've started mine. So let me, without any further ado, give you a little squiz. So there is a choice of necklines, and I wanted to have that come up. What is it called again? Turtleneck. So I wanted the turtleneck, and I think this is not a full turtleneck because it doesn't go over. It goes up there, and you knit it in the round from the top. Then at the back there is a whole load of short rows to give you that higher back than front. And now I'm into the colour work. So you can see here, just look at those colours. I'm really happy with that. I think that's super. So you can see here, that's the start of the fin for the Halibut. Is that actually focusing? Focus. That's better. Alright, so I wasn't too sure how that was going to go. I thought, when I was talking to Judy, I was like, there's lots of colours in that background, maybe it would be better with a solid, but I actually do think it stands out. So the colour work is in the sliver I dyed, and that should really be knitted on a 4mm needle, but I'm knitting it on a 5. And the natural colour, I hand spun that a couple of years ago, and to make it pop I've actually added a silk mohair, and I think it's quite effective. When it's past that, when I'm a little bit further along, you'll get to see the whole halibut. One of the things I'm not too sure about is you do actually start from the top and it's knitted in the round, and as you're doing the pattern you obviously put some increases in there, but I thought at some point you would like split it and continue the pattern down the sleeve and the front, but they don't. They actually do the whole panel and then you separate for the sleeves. So in actual fact your sleeve, you know, the armpit part isn't, it's lower down. I don't know what to call that. It's not a bat wing because it's not a bat wing shape, but it's, you know, I think it might be constricting, but we'll wait and see, because at the end of the day I'm committed now. I want to do it. Yes, so I'm doing the halibut, and it's been a really quick knit because I started this, I don't know, 5 days ago maybe, and that's what I've done. It's a very nice pattern to do. It's intuitive in terms of it's quite easy to follow the pattern, and it's not too complicated, but it's very rewarding. I love it, so I'm going to have a lot of fun with that one, I think, and it's going to be super snuggly for next winter. So that was the halibut, and I don't have another pattern I'm actually doing, or another garment I'm doing, but I went to Auckland last week with a friend, and we went to the museums and shopping and went out to eat. And one of my favorite things when I go up there is there are a couple of knitting places I like to go to, and one of them is Knitnstitch. So I popped along to have a look, and they stock Holst garn, which you've seen, like this one's in Holst garn with a mohair. So quite a few of the magnolias that I've made have been with Holst garn, and I really do like knitting with it. This is really, it's quite a fine yarn, but they had a sample on the one side, and I just fell in love with it. It's a summer knit on 3mm needles. I'm not too sure how I'm going to go with that, and it actually has lace in the yoke and then lace at the base. It's called Pretty in Pink. I'll show you a little picture of that, and it's by Melanie Berg. So A Study in Pink, sorry, A Study in Pink. Let me show you that. So it's a nice lightweight pattern, or lightweight garment. I did for once actually make a little gauge swatch, so you can see it is very light. It's almost see-through there. And the Holst garn that I got was Coast, which is 55% lamb's wool and 45% cotton, so that should be quite good with that pattern. And it's called, the color is called Vista. And yes, so I'm going to start that one, and hopefully I'll have something to show you next time. It might not be a lot actually. What I have done is I've actually signed up on Tin Can Knits. When you get the app, you can sign up for emails and newsletters. They've got a little lace knitting course which they offered for nothing, so I've signed up for that, and I thought that might help me. I mean, I know the magnolia is a lace pattern, but I don't do a lot of lace patterns because I find it quite hard to read, especially if I make a mistake and I've got to go back. But I'm prepared to extend myself a little bit, and I think the repeat on this is actually quite close, so it's not overly complicated. We'll give it a go. So that is the one thing that I'm planning on making fairly soon. What else? I think maybe what I'll do is just get onto the mill now. When I spoke to you last time, I was telling you about having heard about this guy that will have a look at my carding machine. So he contacted me on Monday and said he was coming the very next day. I was like gobsmacked, really. So he turned up on Tuesday, and he said to me, wow, the machines are not set up at all for sheep fleece. And I explained to him they were set up for alpaca, and he basically set all of the roller gaps. So if you imagine it, it feeds in on a conveyor belt, and then it goes around a whole load of rollers, and each roller is going to straighten and line the fibers, and it takes it all through until it comes out at the other end, and then it gets made into a roving. So the gaps were so close that when he put his little gauge thing in, he couldn't even get them in. So there's these little nuts and bolts that he has to undo, every single one, and there's a whole series of them. But I did explain to him as well that I had a bearing that I could tell the one cover was off, and I had been told by my cousin that that would have to be removed so that the new bearing could go on. And it has worried me that if the bearing goes while the machine's in use, it could cause big problems. And he said, yep, you're right, it could cause big problems. And so he's going to come back tomorrow and put the bearing in, and then once the bearing's in, he will then reset all the rollers. He did in fact set them all to, I'm not sure if it's 2 millimeters, but he said 20 was the number that he used. He set them all to 20, and he says what you do is you start off at the 20, and then as it moves up through the rollers, sometimes that's fine to go all the way through, but other times they have to like narrow each one to make sure that it is evenly taking the fleece through. And what had actually been happening was when the fleece was going in, the sheep fleece especially, I don't know that it was doing it with the alpaca, it was actually breaking the fleece. And that was, I think, some of the reason why I was having problems trying to put it through the pin drafter was, even though the staple was starting quite long, by the time it had gone through the carder, it was very short. And so it broke, or it breaks very easily when you put it through the pin drafter. So I'm really excited that we may have that sorted tomorrow. With the adjustments that he made, we did put some fleece through, and it got up, I think, about 4 or 5 rollers, and then it wasn't effectively moving it onto the next one. Even with that, what came out the other end, the roving that came out, was honestly, it was much more aligned than I'd seen it before. And he said that it was carding properly, it just needed the sort of fine-tuning of the rollers. So excited. Can't wait to show you what's happening next week. Yeah, and you know, I tried to tell him I just was so grateful for him coming, because he came from Tipoi, which is probably an hour and a half, at least an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours away from where I live, and he's coming back again tomorrow. He didn't actually have the tools that he needed to change the bearing, and he didn't have the time to change the bearing that day anyway, so he's just felt it was easier to come back at the weekend. Haven't really moved the washing station on, but I did wash about 7 kilos of fleece yesterday, which took virtually the whole day. So I can't wait to see, you know, how much difference it makes having a proper wash station, having the correct heat of water, being able to rinse everything out well. Can't wait to see what a difference that makes. But you know, I want to have a good amount of fleece ready to go through the carder tomorrow, and then after that it's all on with dyeing and all that sort of stuff. Just, yeah, so very, very excited about that. What else happened last week? Oh, I don't know if I told you, but someone contacted me who has a small flock of Corriedale sheep, and she lives up in Mamaku, which is about 15 minutes away. And I'd sort of put off going to see her because it kept raining, and then we decided the one day, no, I'm going to come. Blow me down as I'm driving there. I can just see these grey clouds coming up, and ended up having thunder, really loud thunder. And I'd forgotten, though, when you go up into the hills there, it's actually a few degrees cooler than in town. It was really cold, but just good to sit down and let this lady, shepherdess, talk to me about her sheep. And she loves her sheep. She breeds them as well, and she has some purebred Corriedales. She also has some Corriedale mixed with a bit of Coopworth, and she also has what was the other one, Polworth as well. And I just wish I could find somebody who would like to have a few little sheep on their land, chewing their grass, because you know, then I would consider actually getting the sheep myself and popping it on somebody else's land. But I'm just going to put it out to the universe, bring it in, and see if something happens. But yeah, it was really good to see. I'll put some pictures up of the sheep because they just got these little kind of mops on their head like little wigs. It's quite cute. She had a whole load of lambs this season and they were so lovely to see. What was also lovely was they weren't all white. So most of the fleece that I'm getting is white, and she's got a bunch of coloured sheep. And yeah, so we'll see what happens when that gets sorted out. I think they're going to be sheared in the next week or two, and I'm not really sure if I haven't, you know, I'm going to commit to buying all of the fleece from the flock until I know that I can really get it processed. But I would like to take a couple and just see how it goes through the mill. She uses it, the fleece, for hand spinning, and I know that she sells it to other hand spinners as well. And the other thing that I found out that someone does is they actually get bales of, oh yeah, the carding guy told me this. He said that some people actually get bales of Corriedale from the South Island, but again, that's kind of not quite what I want to do. When you're really trying to keep things local, when you're paying freight or just having things carted from one island to another, it's not quite what I was anticipating doing, but you know, I'll see. What I'm really feeling now is that probably within the next few weeks I will be ready to take on some commission carding for people and put their fleece through, but I want to be absolutely sure that the machines are working well. So I know that the picker is working great. I changed the motor. I think I mentioned this last time, but I changed the motor, drilled a bunch of holes into the dunny or the cupboard, and it has completely solved the sucking out of fleece from every crevice business. And it's a much quieter, gentler process and works very, very well. So that's sorted. The carding guy was actually quite interested to see the other machines, and yeah, and was happy to give me whatever advice that he thought he could help with. So just a real lifesaver, really. In fact, I thought to myself, I need to watch this closely. If anything happens to this guy, which, you know, I'm not saying it will, but that knowledge needs to get passed on, and one shouldn't have to change the settings very often, but if they need changing, then it's good to know how to do it yourself if you need to. So I was watching him quite closely and seeing how he did that. Yeah, but he was, I think he thought I was quite funny in how I kept trying to keep everything quite clean. So he's like, no, the wool gets everywhere, you shouldn't have to worry about that. But quite frankly, you know, Junction Fibre, I don't know what Red's barking about, but anyway, Junction Fibre, they clean their machines regularly, and so that's what I've been doing too, but I don't think I need to. Could be Roger's home, we'll see. But yeah, so that was the carding machine. The other thing that's really been happening for me was, being spring, I've been doing lots of planting in the garden. So I've got all of my seedlings in. I've got about 6 tomato plants that are thriving. I replenished the sawdust or the shavings in the chicken coop. Yeah, so spring is here. The weather's changing. Life's pretty good. No dramas from last week to this week anyway, so yeah, things are really good. Anyway, I think that's enough for today. Hopefully I will manage to put something up in the next week or two. But if you have tuned in, thank you so much. Give me a thumbs up and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.